around Africa, and as a form of expression, has even found love in Kenya. Woody Maya is right here on the show after the discussion segment on big issues. With Bella as well as Cookie. Make sure you stick and stay this morning. We have right here spokesperson for the Ministry of Education, Kwesi Kwating, is right here. Good morning to you, Kwesi. How are you? Yeah, it's been a while. I see that you've been up and down, Charlie.
Yeah.
And on Najuka Wanda.
The issues
coming
because
up.
Sometimes we just have to make Ghanaians understand.
Okay, we'll seek some responses to them in the process. Edem Agbana just marked his birthday. It was Sunday, right?
Yes, Sunday.
Charlie. He celebrates the birthday on the same day as the great man Ibrahim Mahama, and he was in his constituency. And your constituency, which one again, Adam?
Ketu North.
Ketu North.
Yeah.
Politics.
Toyna, you're going for the primaries.
Yes,
You've announced it's a public thing now.
Yes, it's public knowledge. Well, let me say good morning to you and to our cherished viewers, especially to the people in Ketu North.
Okay.
Let me use your platform to show great appreciation to all members of the NDC in Ketu North. On Sunday, I had a very huge celebration in Tajavu, in my beloved constituency, where more than 2,000 party members joined me. All executives from all our 138 branches were there to celebrate with me. I had the likes of the Honorable Obobia Dako, Opoku, and Okujetua Blakwa joining me for that celebration. It was such a beautiful event, and I can only be grateful to everyone, especially the branch executives in Ketu North, for joining me for that very big celebration. I am very encouraged by the messages, the goodwill messages across the country on my birthday. And it's a reminder that as a generation, we have to give our best and continue to sacrifice. And when you are elected into office, you must work for the people because you're supposed to work for the people. I want to use this opportunity also to encourage all the young people, especially in the NDC, to continue working hard for the NDC to come back to power. Making sure John Mahama becomes president in 2025 must be a communal labor. And that is why even beyond my constituency, I still contribute to all other mobilization efforts in other constituencies. This weekend, for example, I will be at the Lejokuku constituency to join the youth wing for a walk being organized by the youth organizer Israel and his team.
You are a former deputy.
Yeah, I'm a former deputy, but I still contribute.
Right.
Not too long ago, I was at Ablekuma West. Okay. No, it's not advert. It's not advert. Okay. It's not advert.
Oh, that's just on the side. Which constituency do you belong to?
Asante
Achimlo. Will you be going for the primaries? You're still making considerations.
No, as of now, I think the biggest interest is to making the president, my boss, Dr. Duchum, and of course, to a larger extent, my MP succeed. The question of who succeed them, I'm sure when it gets there, we'll make a decision.
But of course, that's Andy Apiakubi. Hey, that's a strong one.
Yeah, I mean, we wish him well.
The former MP is my friend.
Kojo
Bajiman.
Yeah.
He used to work in
the
media as well.
Kojo is also a great guy. Yeah. I mean, MP has done his part, but like I indicated, what is most important is for the government to succeed.
Correct.
There will also be a time where, I mean, there will be opening of nomination for people to succeed them. When that gets there, I'm sure all decisions will be made. But for now, I want to wish Edem a happy belated birthday. He's a great guy, and I have had the opportunity to, build some relationship and have some working relationship with him. If he becomes an MP, it's good. But as to the last wish about JM becoming president,
JM is becoming president. There's no debate about that.
JM becoming a president. That one will defer it for subsequent discussions.
All right. What we cannot defer is this LPM, and it's about admissions because the Reverend John Tay Memorial Institute has admissions for senior high school, the junior high school level, primary and preschool. Now this year, look no further for your best SHS facility with a state-of-the-art science laboratory. Reverend John Tay, they offer general science, general arts, visual arts, home economics, business, and music. Make sure you rush for your admissions. Now, John Tay Memorial Institute on Christ, the solid rock we stand. Make sure for further inquiries you contact the following details on the phone line 055 7804 701 or 024344 3602. Well, let's come to the discussion. Kwesi Kwating, I see that you've been caught. Banasa did the piece, says free SHS, the placement, etc. What has been your response officially?
I mean, in the first place, the ministry is going to speak through a press release later this morning. But in the first place, we take it in good faith. We've taken notice of the said documentary. I have had the opportunity to watch excerpts of them. I mean, our preliminary comments is that we commend him and his team for such a work. At the end of the day, we are still going to study the investigative piece. Of course, I mean, there were instances where he was able to get some cleaners who in the said documentary apparently facilitated some placements. Of course, when we understand the entire process, we realize that it is a possibility, and then it is not in any way an absolute way where somebody can say, I mean, pinpoint direction on the ministry or the minister. But by and large, we take it in good faith. We commend his team, and then we are going to make sure that whatever loopholes that exist within the placement structure, we are going to strengthen it. It is not something that just came up. It is something that we have been working on. I mean, if you recall, last year, for instance, I issued a press cautioning parents against these unscrupulous individuals who may want to take advantage of the system, particularly when it comes to the protocol bit or the protocol regimen that we have. Often at times, if you look at the kind of placement system that we have the automatic placement, we have the manual placement, and also the self-placement. Within the manual placement, there's also that bit of the protocol system that we have, where mostly is given to, for instance, the schools, the head teachers, the old boys, the more or less those who have been helping or assisting the schools.
Who are stakeholders.
Stakeholders, exactly. So, I mean, within this, it is possible that somebody may come with a genuine case and present a list that help assist student A or student B. And based on that, you may not necessarily even know that such a person has been compromised. So whilst we accept his findings, and of course we are going to work with it and also liaise with the relevant state institutions and make sure that we improve and strengthen our process, it would be so unfair to, based on such findings, to conclude that some way, somehow, especially if we look at the line of the story, as though somebody in the ministry, particularly the minister, was responsible. I'm not sure that if today in TV3, if any cleaner has any issues to do with the law, or if any cleaner probably do something contrary to the rules of TV3, it will be fair to say that it is the CEO of TV3 who did that. But, I mean, it's an opportunity, it's an invitation for us to once again look at our system, strengthen it, and make sure that we still continue with the equitable distribution of resources, especially when it comes to education.
And we know that the placement, since it was introduced in the last administration, has always been a matter of whether we have enough of the choice of schools, of the candidates, and the places available for admissions. Because when they do the admissions, you find that there are schools that have a lot of places, but because they don't seem to be the first point of choice. For example, you went to Maoli School.
Yes.
Maoli School is always oversubscribed, or the admission or the application is always oversubscribed.
Yes, Roland, I think that since 2005, when we introduced the computerized school selection and placement system, year on, we've seen that the system always encountered one challenge or the other. I think 2 or 3 years ago, we had a situation where parents had to gather at the Independence Square in protesting against the challenges that came with the system. And so the system has always had challenges under every administration. But it's important for us to separate the discussion from the normal challenges to what we have now. The big challenge now is that some people are taking advantage of the challenges in the system to exploit innocent students and their parents. And so corruption within that sector has become the practice of the day. People are so bold about it that, Roland, I can show you screenshots from people's status or posts on social media advertising that when you want special placement, contact me in my DM, call this number and what have you. Because they are so bold about the corruption going on. Because there's no punishment. Nobody is being sanctioned. No punitive measures have been meted out to those involved in this act. That we see especially activists of the NPP boldly advertise that they can help people with this special placement. Roland, it's a very big issue, and I think that we must not just treat it as a matter of Ministry of Education or what have you. It is a matter that the security agencies must quickly investigate. Let's see the people who have been involved, they must be sanctioned. Because the real intention of the system was to ensure some transparency in school placement so that for that young child who is maybe the son of a poor farmer from a village anywhere in Ghana, but with very good grades from the BEC, can have equal access to the same schools as anyone else from the very big schools here in the city. And that is the essence of the placement system. So when you have people working so hard, these students, some burning the midnight candle, studying so hard, they make it, but are denied opportunity to get schools that they qualify for because somebody somewhere enters the system with money and is able to buy placement for their children. It is a serious national security issue that we must address. The big question is who at the ministry or at the computerized selection center, when you go to that center, I recall when the NDC was in power, I had the opportunity to work at the Ministry of Education as well. Anytime it was time for placement, the kind of security that you meet around the center, even having access to the center, was a difficulty because we try to ensure that people will not go in there and then involve this human error or human factor where bribes will be taken or bribes will be given to influence the selection. But what we have today is a free-for-all system where somebody with a very bad grade is given the grade A schools because the person can afford to buy that slot. This is a very serious issue that must be treated or must be taken seriously. I'm surprised that Kwesi speaks as though this issue, this is the first time they are hearing about it. Because Kwesi should know that we know that this thing has been going on for a long time now. It is something that is a practice, it's been a practice for some time. Because when you have a system where there is no transparency, the people managing the system are only interested in exploiting or milking, taking advantage of this system to make money. That is what you have. So for that poor child from Ablikope who may have done everything possible to pass the exams and is waiting to enter maybe Maoli School. Maoli School may have, let's say, slot for 800 people. Now you qualify to enter Maoli School, but because someone sitting somewhere takes bribe to influence the selection system, the one who is qualified to enter that system, the person is unable to go to that school. But you see, Roland, that has become the practice of the day, and it is not limited to the school selection system. National service, and all those watching me, young people watching me can attest to the fact that even national service, where you are placed, people are buying slots for national service. Our security agencies, people are buying slots. What kind of a culture have we introduced into this system? That corruption has become, is gradually becoming a culture. That people are boldly doing it. They advertise it, selling these slots. And the ministry, headed by the minister, is pretending as though this is news to them. And that for me is a big surprise. In any serious jurisdiction, Roland, where systems work, where principles work, where institutions work, the minister should have resigned by now. The director in charge of school placement, because everything rises and falls on leadership. It is the minister that supervises the work of the agency.
As we wrap up on this, what actions have been taken, taking into consideration some of the concerns that have been expressed by stakeholders? I think if you look at the thing is, the choice of schools that people want seem to be less, and the placements in there. So the demand is high for those placements, for the high choice of schools, than the ones that we don't have. So how do we resolve this? And then the middlemen, because Adam speaks as if it's a minister who went to take bribe or something, but try and resolve it.
No, understand Adam, and I'll pardon him because he's representing a political party, so it's fair to make such comments, especially from his side. I mean, I have moved beyond that. I speak for the Ministry of Education, and I'm duty-bound to speak as a professional. So most of the invitation to play the usual politics, I'll waive that. Because, I mean, clearly, the logic that because a system has a problem, so for that matter, it is the leader that must be hanged, is so simplistic and unsustainable. I think, but I forgive Adam once again, because Adam clearly does not understand how the processes do work. I'm very surprised that he said he worked at the Ministry of Education for some time. You have a system where there is a protocol model. Initially, within the system, you have the automatic placement, you have the manual placement, you also have a protocol model. Of course, all is geared towards helping the underserved, and some, especially when there are special cases or very genuine cases, where the ministry may have to intervene. For instance, last year there was an instance where a journalist came to the minister. There was a student who, prior to the selection, was very fit, but after the selection and the placement process, was involved in an accident. Okay. In a very clear case like this, the minister was bound to use his discretion, and of course, based on the protocol arrangement, place a student in a place where the parents could have opportunity to take care of her as a day student. How is the Minister of Education able to know that throughout this chain, whoever brought that student might probably have taken a personal or a amount of money? But for me, it boils down to our general performance when it comes to how, in terms of how we've implemented policies and how they are coming back to us. If you go to DVLA, I mean, you may have these issues.
We're just even talking about passports.
Yes, exactly.
It's not the ministry, but we have middlemen who have developed the culture.
Anywhere you have a human interface in everything, unless, of course, Roland, today as we sit here, we say that we are going to do away with the protocol system. Then fair enough, everybody is placed based on automatic arrangement. Then we are good to go. Until that, how is the minister able to know that if Precise Legon submits their protocol list, a protocol is for their own stakeholders, for their own old boys, for their own PT. How is the Minister of Education able to know that such list somebody might have compromised? So it is possible that throughout the process, Bernard has been turned into a Goro boy. Then Bernard forwards to Edem, who happens to be the headmaster of, let's say, Oweremine Senior High School in my hometown, Domiabra. He is a Goro boy. He then turns to me, Kwesi, please, this is a very special case. Give it to Roland, who happens to be the Minister for Education. And then within the chain, everybody might have been turned into a Goro boy. How is the Minister for Education able to know that Bernard took something before he brought the list? I mean, to be fair to him, this is somebody who lived all his life in America, established charter school. I'm not sure it would be fair to suggest that when people are paying 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 cedis, he's the person sanctioning. Of course, we are not running away from the fact that there is a possibility. As soon as you have a human interface, you are going to have that possibility. But the minister is saying that, hey, look, I am taking responsibility as a leader, and then admit that, well, the video that you've brought, there is a possibility. There is a room for that. And so we are going to strengthen our system based on the video that you brought. Indeed, we are not pretending that this is the first time that this is happening. If that is the case, last year we couldn't have constituted a board or a committee to look into such matters. If that was the case, last year we couldn't have invited the BNI or the NIB to look into such matters. So it is something that you have a human interface where every year you have those challenges. And at every point, you improve upon the system. When we started, the protocol arrangement was around 30%. When the CSSPS system came, today it's 10%. It means that systemically and gradually, at every point, there has been some intervention. Today, with the intervention of the same Minister for Education, he's introduced the cluster system, again, to give more opportunity in terms of access to a lot of students to be able to enroll in the school within the catchment area.
I know somebody who went to my area, this government school in Ajay-Kwejo, and that person performed creditably, exactly. But didn't perform like somebody else who went to a private school. Yeah. But the government school student was given the opportunity.
Exactly. There is also an affirmative action, affirmative policy on 30% protocol. That is given
affirmative means for women especially, or girls.
Yeah, but within this context, broadly to even everyone, deprived, underserved, vulnerable. Where public schools, particularly those coming from underserved communities, they are given 30% of the protocol arrangement. So it is possible that in your attempt to help people rise, you may get people who may want to exploit the situation.
So how do you intend removing the human interface?
Yes, at the end of the day, we can still caution people, but of course, at the Ministry of Education, that's what I'm saying, that you have that human element. At the Ministry of Education, I mean, there was a report that has been commissioned. There have been a lot of recommendations. I don't have the liberty to discuss the recommendations now. I don't have the liberty to discuss the recommendations now. But at least there have been some level of responsibility from the ministry. At every point, we introduce some interventions geared towards improving the system. I mean, nobody has said that we are running an absolute 100% system or we are running an absolute perfect system. But what we are saying is that we take responsibility that at every point we are going to make changes, we are going to take responsibility, we are going to liaise with all relevant institutions and make sure that we remedy the situation. But to be fair to all of us, unless, of course, as a country, we see that when it comes to the protocol arrangement where it's used to help underserved students, we are probably saying that we are going to cancel it so that everybody, when you talk about fair, we have the literal context of fairness so that those students...
And the floodgates are open.
And yes, so that students from his community... I mean, Adam speaks to me. We are friends. Today, we will just leave here and Adam will present his list that these are some underserved students that we should help. How am I able to know?
Especially now that he's going for a contest.
A contest, he will come. How am I able to know that Adam has compromised it?
We also do know that there are key issues about individual bondholders, the effect on the banking sector, and then also what the state of the rate to GDP is, the current exchange or the domestic exchange program, and its effect on the banking sector. This is an insight into concerns and then the exposures of banks. And then when we come back, we'll do those discussions. But we have Bernard Mona also in the studio. But let's take this and then we'll come back to him.
I've been in the studio for 30 minutes.
Outturn in operating income was, however, moderated by increased operating expenses and provisioning during the year. Operating expenses rose by 32.2%. in December 2022 compared to 14.2% in 2021. Provisions also increased sharply by 184% in December 2022 relative to a contraction of 4.7% a year earlier due to the strong uptick in credit growth, elevated credit risks, and the impairments on investments. As a result, profit before tax declined by 13% to 6.4 billion Ghana cedis in December 2022, compared with an annual growth of 22.1% a year earlier.
And that's Dr. Addison, the central bank governor. And thank you for coming, Bernard Mona. The banks are reeling from these difficulties. The individual bondholders seem to have reached an agreement. They're now saying that they've made a proposal of 54 billion, but it looks like banks have been extremely exposed. But behind those banks are customers. Customers' monies and their deposits have also been exposed as well.
You are not taking me away from the education issues. Without education, I will not be competent to be in your studios. And so matters affecting education affects all of us. It's important that I take a bite on what the situation is. And probably we can look at the way forward. But first, good morning to Kwesi and Adam. And I was actually late for the first time. I got towards the airport and then the police said I had jumped the traffic. They had to take me through a whole lot of circuits before eventually I got here. That said, see, Kwesi is not telling us something that on the 21st of June, 2002, there was a committee that was formed, that the committee was supposed to come up with its report by the 29th of July, 2002. And that report, the minister is aware. And of course, they have received the report. The indictment and containment in that report, if was made public, I'm not sure that the Fourth Estate would have had anything to do, because that expose in the report alone is sufficient to have addressed the issue. So for the minister to pretend...
You're talking 2020 or?
2022.
Okay.
For the minister to pretend that this has come to him as a shock, when indeed the National Security Minister, Kandapa, actually was the one who insisted that this should be done, and the report has been done. How come that the report has not been made public if indeed we wanted to get to the bottom of this matter? Because if Kwesi admits that, look, it has been a perennial problem, we are working towards it, then the reports must not be hidden so that we can get to know the nuances inside it, and then we can deal with it. Would that suggest that probably is one of the reasons why the former Director General of the Ghana Education Service was dismissed?
Bernard.
Why? When you were talking, I was
What kind
sitting
of
at the corner.
logic is that?
Would that suggest that it is one of the reasons? Because if you listen to the former Director General, he said, look, at the head of it is that he is a former director, the minister has been there, and therefore they cannot escape culpability in this matter. So it is important that, look, leaders must own up. And it is not true that anytime there is a problem, leaders must not be the ones to be charged with it. Because without the leaders, indeed, the structure will not function. And it is important that the minister should be the one that all guns should be pointed at. And then he has a duty to now want to fish out, and in particular to want to put up the report that was concluded in as far as July 29, 2022. Moving forward, see, why are people looking into some grade A schools and looking for placement in those grade A schools? What it simply means is that we have not have equitable distribution of the resources meant for education, whether it is in the personnel or it is in the kind of amenities that are available or what have you. And therefore, if you go to Laura Secondary School, where it's supposed to be a science school, and we do not have sufficient science material, we do not have sufficient science teachers, how do you expect that students will go there and excel in their sciences? And so the absence of proper distribution and quality distribution of the resources meant for education is also one of the reasons why parents will be struggling, knowing very well that our education system, you must go to a particular school in order to be able to progress. If you go to some other weak schools, your chances of progress is very limited. And so as minister and persons working at the education ministry, one of your core duties is to ensure that, look, we are able to ensure that we distribute high-class teachers to these low-grade schools. We are able to ensure that resources of all kinds are put there. You cannot say that you have changed educational curricula for 4 years, and then it is now that we are beginning to have textbooks. What were the teachers going to teach the pupils on? So all these things are a caboodle of reasons for which parents will be struggling. Caboodle of reasons for which we will have all these difficulties going on. I think that, look, like Kwesi has said, there is obviously going to be protocol arrangements. And that protocol, if it is transparent and monies are not exchanged, no one will. Look, if the chief of a particular community says that these are my sons, and I want you, because school is located in my area, I want you to secure admissions for them. It will be very difficult for you to say that you will not do so. And so in offering that, that will categorize as a protocol arrangement. That is granted. All students of various schools have contributed enormously. And therefore, if the old students say that, look, we have 1 or 2, and we want you to consider them in our alma mater, it is right to do so. But it is not that kind of protocol that we are observing today. It is the payment of as much as 20,000 cedis to enable somebody who is not qualified to be in a particular school to go. That is the reason why we are complaining today. Beyond that, I am not, look, you cannot go and establish a school somewhere and say that nobody from the community...
She's saying it's a human institution, so because there's...
that is why we... Look, and Chrissy, I beg you, don't use this argument that the minister has stayed in America and has established... There are Americans who are as much corrupt. There are Americans who have run away from their obligations, from their own states.
So your point is?
So don't use the fact that somebody has lived in the United States of America, and therefore when corruption or some malfeasance is going on under his administration, the fact that the person has been trained and lived in a particular part of the world means that the person will be insulated from the happenings in that list. Probably you may not be aware, but maybe this thing is going on. It is possible. See, if you listen to the report by the Fourth Estate, it said that security personnel were involved. Right? It says that cleaners were involved. Persons that you do not expect that even have the capacity. And these people could not have been involved without having a linkage to somebody big at the top. So how come that this cleaner is able to link up with this security, that security have access to the room? Because if the security personnel is walking in, nobody will say, let me search you. And so they know how to pass and get the thing done. And of course, the computer placement is managed by people. And so if they are able to get to the persons that are there, these things will happen. We say accept responsibility. Let the minister publish the report of the 29th of July 2022, and then we can move forward. Look, we have problems, and we can deal with those problems if we collectively want to address the situation. Education is important, and no one can run away from it.
Yeah, I played an insert. I wanted you to. It's a bondholders, the exposures, the bank's exposures.
Hold on, you didn't allow me to react.
You want to? If you react,
but after your reaction, I'll respond.
I also have a comment.
Yeah, brother.
Yes.
You also have a
My time is up. Otherwise, I have to go for break, and I don't.
No, let me start.
No, Roland.
No,
my quick. Yes, my quick comment in response to.
Please, I give you only 2 minutes.
Yes, Kwesi, is that I'm
This
surprised.
is their third round on this matter.
You didn't come early.
I am surprised that for the first time, Kwesi is refusing to accept responsibility and is saying that
you said for the
minister,
for the first time.
Yes, he's refusing to accept responsibility.
Are you sure?
The minister may not know anything about it and all of that. Let me take you back to a few years ago when we had those unfortunate happenings in Sada, Ajida, and all of that. Was President Mahama the one in charge of those institutions? But you placed the entire blame on him, called him names, to the extent that you even designed posters where you had, guinea fowls flying and all of that. Was he the one in charge? So when it happens under your administration, the leader, you are trying to exonerate the leader and put the blame on the unknown, the unknown, faceless.
What's your point?
My point is that the minister ought to accept responsibility. And that's the same point Bernard is making.
His point is
that whatever is happening there now, they cannot pretend that they are not aware.
Okay.
What is happening is because you have the big men empowering a few individuals who are taking advantage of the system to exploit these innocent children. My big concern is that when I completed Labaoleshi Presby JSS and I had good grades, if the computer system had placed me in Maoli school and Maoli had limited slots, but because of this kind of system where people take money and bring in people who don't deserve to be there, maybe they would have posted me to a different school.
You would have gotten your placement.
My placement,
okay,
which I deserve. And so we need to think about the underprivileged people, the poor child. We don't have to build a system where the weight of your pocket determines your access to education that you even qualify for. The minister ought to take responsibility. This whole idea of the minister is not aware and all of that, I think that
who said the minister is not aware?
That's the point that you made. And you were trying to say the minister may not be aware of the individuals taking money and all of that. And Bernard is saying that there's even a report that exposed all these things earlier in 2022, but you refuse to act on it. So don't pretend as though the Fourth Estate, Manasseh's investigation is what is bringing these issues to light. You ought to know that these things are happening because the people you have placed there, the people you have appointed, they are failing, they are corrupt. Take responsibility.
What's your responsibility then quickly? We can go to.
the argument is that I'm saying the minister is not aware. And then the same minister...
But you didn't say that.
I never said that. I mean, just to choose that point. The same minister couldn't have escalated investigation up to the level of the national security by setting up a committee.
For arrest to be made?
Yes, I mean last year. Okay. So, I mean, on that note, that argument is not sustainable. Again, Bernard said a report was supposed to be concluded in July. Yes.
Is there a report?
Yes, there is a report. Bernard, in part, is right, because that was the mandate of the committee. But the committee was not working in isolation. They were working with other institutions, the National Security, GES, other state institutions like the police. So the report, apparently, it took some time before they were able to finish. But the report is done. There are some recommendations. National Security Minister is expected to also make some input and act on it. Of course, internally, there are some recommendations that we are also adapting. So that is it. It is not as though a report is sitting there somewhere 6 months that we've not acted on it. Again, he spoke about the absence of proper distribution of resources. That's probably causing the desire and the insatiable interest in, people subscribing to the Category A schools. I believe that is not the case. I schooled in a Category B school, Conundrums school. Today I was speaking for the Ministry of Education. You did not go to Pesek, Lagos. Today you sit here and represent the whole...
I schooled at Sankana DA.
Perfect. So it is not as though it has to do with the schools that probably have to elevate you.
DA?
No, I don't know Sankana DA.
It's not even local authority.
But now let me proceed. No, but the point I want to make is that it is not a matter of the schools not being resourced. As I speak to you today, every secondary school within this country has been resourced in terms of their science laboratories. All science laboratories have been retooled. If you go to TV schools, for instance, all the 200 TV schools have been retooled. Today, you see Francisca Lamini, the girl who went to Harvard University to read medical sciences, coming from Keita, but not say Aburi girls. There has been many.
Has been one
I'm coming. No,
is one of the best schools ever.
No,
since the days that we're doing.
No, but ordinarily. Can I? I'm not saying it's a deprived school. I'm not saying it's a deprived school.
Guys,
Can I land? No, where the desire has always been has been around Pesek, Legon, Abri girls, Wesley girl, Wachimota, and the Holy Child. Of course, I'm not running down Kita, but I'm saying that ordinarily, if we were seeing people topping the maths and science schools, probably
the first option
would have been any of the Gehes and today. Tepa has been doing extremely well.
But people will not choose it.
People will not choose it. It is about the placement regime that we use, where people have the right to choose. Where people have the right to select a school that they want based on their own variables that they are considering.
Whether he would want the child to go to your child's brand.
Why? Any school of choice.
Great.
Any school of choice.
So that's
I mean, if you know, those who have gotten in contact with me for some things, I tell them that, look, if you post you for national service into any community,
the point
you have to go and do
it. The point is that in reality, if we are being fair to ourselves, it would be so unfair to compare a school, for instance, which is like 15 years old, to a school which has stood the test of time, built a culture, 50, 60, like 80. The percent 80 years. Obviously, such a school, even in the university cycles, in Ghana, as I speak to you, University of Ghana has been a premier university.
It's not true. University of Cape
I'm not going to debate on that. I'm not going to debate on that. If you go to every country, there is a premier institution there. You go to America, it's Harvard. You go to UK, it's this. You London School of Economics.
So you're saying there's a certain tradition and perception that is
so natural that at every point you may have some desire towards some institutions. People may want to work with Media General, but not probably some other stations. Are they all not media houses?
Yeah.
So the fact that people are so upset with Media General, and for that matter, they want to work by all means at all costs, then within this chain, you have people who may want to exploit them. You cannot necessarily conclude that, for that matter, it is the CEO of Media General that is causing such compromise. If the CEO of Media General had not come to say that, well, I am taking responsibility of all the issues that you've raised, I am not going to look into all the issues that you've raised, I'm not going to admit and probably fix all the loopholes, then you have a recourse to blame him. But in the case you have the Minister of Education who have introduced a lot of interventions, tests for verification, classer system, STEM schools within all this placement regime, And you are saying that because there is a certain error or something that did not go well, where probably is even shrouded within that scope of a human interface, where it is very possible. And unless, of course, we are lying or deceiving ourselves, go to the port. Everywhere you have a human, even within the education system, haven't you heard on scrupulous individuals marketing that they can get students with BEC results, changing them, they are going to get them questions. It took the same Minister of Education his intervention to introduce realization so that that problem has been solved. So yes, it is something that we admit, we take responsibility that we are going to address it. Which report? The report is done, it's been presented to the minister. If you look at the mandate of the committee, they are supposed to present the report through the Minister for Education to the Minister for National Security, so that you don't sit here and say that the minister is investigating his own institution and making decisions for himself.
Get a copy
that
of the
is
report,
that is the level of
these challenges were
that is the level of transparency. That is the
report.
level of transparency from the minister. But I get you. You are political elements. You are representing.
But you got to the ministry through politics. So don't sit here and say that.
No,
you got to the ministry through politics.
No, but I'm speaking for the Ministry of Education.
So, but you go to the ministry. You got there because of politics.
Obviously,
sit here and
obviously.
You are a politician in the ministry. So take away that
from origin.
Take away.
Let him make his point.
No,
let him make.
You are not a politician at that place.
At this crucial time, my point is that
Bernard, let him make his point, please.
Is he not a politician?
Please
At this crucial time, you have to separate your political biasness from the raw
That is
issue.
why I took up the
it.
issue of education
Other than that, you miss it.
away from
No, you have to separate your political biasness. Remove your political cap.
Are you a politician at the ministry?
I am not a politician. I am speaking for the Ministry of Education.
You are. If you were not a member of the New Patriotic Party,
I am a public servant.
Can we stop this thing?
No, he is a member of the New Patriotic Party.
I have not denied that. It doesn't make me unprofessional.
Roland,
no.
The director.
So stop using the word political.
The director of the computerized school selection and placement system is a political appointee. And so whenever government changes, they are changed. And so the person that was appointed under the NDC is no more the person there. And so the person is a political appointee.
So I get you. It's to play politics, political equalization.
Politics.
It's fair. Now I get you.
The process
it's concluded.
It's an outcome of a political process.
Using the word.
Why do you want us to believe this morning on set that whatever is happening is being done by some faceless individuals without collaborators from the ministry, without collaborators from the director that is responsible for the placement? Now,
so we
if it's a human interface, that is why I made a point that everything rises and falls. I'm not politicizing it. Everything rises and falls on leadership. The essence of having a leader is for the leader to institute mechanisms, measures to prevent the occurrence of some of these things. And you have admitted.
There are laws in the country. People still commit crime.
You admitted.
No, there are laws in the country. There is police in the country. People still commit crime.
You admitted earlier. Roland.
Come again.
Kwesi admitted.
Let's wrap up here.
Kwesi admitted.
Go for a break.
So Kwesi admitted that the minister is aware of this challenge, and that is why
he is fixing it.
He instituted certain measures.
And he has been fixing it.
Now, the question is, what has been the outcome of those measures? Because the essence of leadership is not just to discover problems, but to solve them. So you don't tell me that the minister is aware, set up a committee, he is fixing, and yet recent investigation reveals that this thing isn't happening. And you have MPP activists boldly advertising on social media.
Who is MPP activist?
I'm telling you, have MPP activists boldly advertising that if you want,
you don't make a blanket tweet.
No, I made this point, and I'm telling you that we shouldn't politicize the people that were caught in the video, who are they?
They are MPP activists. The whole MPP membership.
People are boldly advertising this thing. And Roland, it's a serious matter.
But those caught in the video are MPP guys. Who does that?
Boldly advertising
logic is
that they can sell or they can help you with special placement in schools and all of that.
And you think they are not NDC guys?
My point is that, Roland, my point is that I am so concerned because I come from I can say I come from very humble beginnings. My father could not afford to buy me a slot in Mauli
Which
school.
school did you, Mauli?
I went to Labaoleshi Presby JS. That's why I completed.
No, SHS.
And I said, no, SHS, I went to Mauli. And I got there purely based on merit.
You were sitting home, you say.
And so for that poor child from Penny, who may have qualified to go to Accra Girls, who may have qualified to go to Wesley Girls, may be denied her chance
No,
simply because
you don't
her
understand the
slot is being
process.
sold to people
30%
who
is
pay.
allocated to them. That's what you still don't understand.
Roland,
That's why somebody
that is
said
a
both go to
condition.
Etasco.
And
Who is
and that's what I'm saying.
So
That
we're going for a break.
So
When we come back, we'll have the focus on the issues within the banking crisis and surrounding the domestic exchange program and how customers and the entire banking system is affected. We're taking a break. We'll be right back.